Hey, book lovers, it's Natalie with Pippa Pages, and I hope you all are doing well today and that you're ready for another book and brew discussion. Today's featured mug is this cute little black and white number that says happiness is a cup of coffee and a good book. Very, very true. You can see it's got these cute little heart shapes that have been, they look like they've been cut out of a book and put on here. So it's a very, very cute little mug. It's one of my absolute favorites. One of my students named Elena got this for me. I think she was in 6th grade when she got this for me. But I just thought it'd be a very appropriate mug for today, especially with the hearts, with the topic that I'm going to be talking about. And today's topic came up from a discussion that I overheard in my class. So this discussion started because I'm not sure if you all have heard this or not, but Netflix is doing an adaptation of Stephenie Meyer's Midnight Sun. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, it is a retelling of the Twilight book, the first one, from Edward's perspective. And they're going to be doing it as an animated version. Now, I'm not sure if you all read Twilight. If you've not, I would not suggest that you read Twilight. But when it came out, it was hugely popular. It was like everybody developed brain fever and they had to read it. I myself am included in that. I did indeed read the entire Twilight series. I did indeed watch all of the movies, bad acting and all. And at the time, I enjoyed them. I never thought they were like super good, but the story engaged me. I enjoyed it enough that when the first one came out, and then I had to, I think I read the first two back to back because they'd already been published, and then I had to wait for the other ones, and it was like, oh my gosh, when are the other ones going to come out? But a couple years after my initial reading, I went back to read them again. This is the true test of whether or not you like something, of whether or not something has staying power, of whether or not something is well written. Because when I cracked that puppy open and I started reading it, I was like, this is crap. I'm sorry if anybody out there likes Twilight, but I could not. And so after I tried my reread and discovered these are horribly written, I packed them up. I gave them to somebody else. I did not want that in my house. And some of you may think that I'm overreacting, but I bet that the ones of you who think that I'm overreacting are also the ones who have not read Twilight. I'm thinking that's a safe bet. But anyway, the discussion that I overheard was no doubt sparked by the fact that all of this is back in the news again, social consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And the discussion was, are you Team Jacob or Team Edward? And I thought we had left this behind. I thought this was in the past. And I was like, what in the world? And then one very wise young lady in my class said neither. And I was like, I applaud you for your stance. But it really made me start thinking about boys in books, or men in books, or anyone in a book that we can have a crush on. And, I don't think that Jacob or Edward are good people to have crushes on. They both have very concerning flaws. And I see other people on YouTube that make similar videos like this, and when they talk about their book crushes, they mention people like Mr. Rochester from Jane Eyre and Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. I'm just saying that those are probably not the best people to have crushes on either. Because while Jacob and Edward They have, like I said, concerns, that red flags all over the place. Um, Mr. Rochester and Heathcliff are maniacs, and 10 out of 10 would not recommend either of those. But I'll be talking more about them a little later on as it gets closer to spooky season. So you'll be hearing those names again, but not in the Crush video. Absolutely not. No, no, no. And if you do have a crush on either of those, I would advise you to maybe seek out some help. Um, so anyway, moving on, I want to talk about some crushes that I have had in books, and these are people I would say are healthier choices than Team Jacob or Team Edward. Um, and these are people that you're not attracted to momentarily. These are people that you could see yourself marrying. Most of these come from, well, all three of these come from classic works of literature. It's kind of what I deal with. So, um, I've spent the most time with these characters. I read most of these when I was growing up, and they've stuck around. And these men have some really great characteristics. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the first one, and I have my top three here. It was very hard. Like, it wasn't hard to pick out the top three. Like, I automatically knew who the top three were. Um, Putting them in order in that top three was very difficult. The first one I'm beginning with is someone that, okay, he has a lot of money, but that's not why he's in the top three. Although his money and his estate are very attractive in their own right. But he himself, at the beginning of the novel, he seems very rude and judgmental. But he grows on us as we read this novel. And that's kind of the whole point of it. And you've probably figured out who I'm talking about by now. But I am talking about Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. You know, everybody who loves Jane Austen, you're going to have one favorite Jane Austen book. And you're going to have one favorite love in the Jane Austen universe. Some people are really big on Mr. Knightley. Some people are big on Colonel Brandon. Now, while I do love Colonel Brandon as portrayed by Alan Rickman in the Sense and Sensibility movie, in the book, I don't find myself as attracted to him. But there is something about Mr. Darcy. The tall, dark, brooding type, just the fact that he's such a jerk at the beginning, and we all, along with Elizabeth, we incorrectly judge him. We don't understand what kind of person he is just from the outward appearance. And we only find that out later when adversity strikes, because we learn from him what happened with Wickham. I couldn't think of his name. Whew. With Wickham and his younger sister. He writes Elizabeth this beautiful letter explaining everything, and he saves his sister, and later on when we see him at home, we see more of his relationship with his sister, and it's a beautiful thing. And then when Wickham comes in again and runs off with Elizabeth's sister Lydia, threatening to ruin the whole family, Mr. Darcy steps in once again. He takes care of the situation. He makes sure that Elizabeth's name is free and clear and that she can marry him. And his actions speak louder than his words at the beginning of the novel. He realizes that he loves Elizabeth, and then he changes his behavior to match that. Now, I absolutely adore that, because when he cares about someone, he is all in, whether it's his sister, whether it's his future spouse. He is a person who cares deeply and wants to help those he loves, and that is an extremely admirable quality. And for that reason, Mr. Darcy is always going to be one of my top book boyfriends. my literary crushes. I think book boyfriend is kind of a cute way to put that. The next one is one that I have a character that I have been acquainted with for a long time, and this is from a very thick book. And I'll go ahead and show you which book it's from. It's from Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is a beautiful Puffin and Bloom edition of this book. I mean, my goodness, can you see this? This was actually a present that was given to me by all of my drama students. You can see they signed it there. But this is from whenever we did a production of Little Women, and so it's very near and dear to my heart, this particular copy of it. But probably most of you, when you see this, are going to be like, oh, she's going to talk about Laurie. I am not going to talk about Laurie. Well, I think Laurie is a wonderful character. He's a great best friend for Jo. There was a time when I first read Little Women that I got so mad at Jo because she didn't pick Laurie. I wanted her to pick Laurie. And then I met one of my all-time favorites, and that is Professor Friedrich Bhaer. Professor Bhaer is poor as a church mouse. He is a German immigrant. He has no money. He's living in a boarding house. He's living away from his family. And he is everything that Laurie is not, because Laurie, he still has he's still living in his grandpa's house. He's living on his grandpa's money. He's running around being an artist and just all this stuff, And with Professor Bhaer, he is a hardworking man. He is a professor, obviously, because hello, Professor Bhaer. But he teaches German at a university. He also tutors. He does private lessons on the side. He's making money not only for himself but to support children in his family. I think they're his nephews. It's been a hot minute since I've read this, but I'm pretty sure they're his nephews. And we can see through his interactions with the daughters of the landlady that he is such a kind soul, and he falls in love with Jo so sweetly. It's not like he's a creeper trying to push himself on her. He's genuinely concerned about her from the beginning, because he's genuinely concerned about everyone that he comes into contact with, because he's just that type of guy. And he's worried that Jo is lonely because she's far away from her family, and he's empathetic because he is away from his family. He knows what it's like to be lonely in the big city, because this all happens when Jo goes and stays in New York. And so he takes her to the opera. He takes her to like the art gallery. All these experiences that she wouldn't have wanted to go on by herself. He takes her, and they develop this really strong friendship. And it's a different kind of friendship than she had with Laurie, because, with Laurie, it was a childhood friendship, but this is an adult friendship. This is someone you can turn to with problems that you never even thought you were going to have when you were younger. And also, Laurie knows her family. He knows all the background. He knows too much about her. And sometimes you need someone to come in and be very objective about what you're going through. And so, Professor Bhaer is able to be that objective voice for her. And so, he loves unconditionally, like we saw with Mr. Darcy. the difference is, he has no money, he has no means of supporting Joe. But how he supports her is by supporting her work. So he's not financially supporting her. He is supporting the woman that she wants to become, and he knows that she can become. She starts out writing all these sensational stories, zombies and corpses and like robbers and just, anything to make a buck because she wants to be a writer. She brings the stories for him to read and he's like, "Oh, I know you can do better than this." It upsets her at first, but then she realizes that he's just trying to make her better. And then he comes and visits her at home after she goes back, and he develops such a great relationship with her family. Everyone adores him. So he just seems like such a natural fit. And it's funny because Louisa May Alcott did not want to have Joe get married in Little Women. It's technically Little Women. This big honking version of it is the first two books. It's Little Women and Good Wives, and usually they're packaged together. But she did not originally want Joe to get married, and I've read some things that she was kind of pressured to make her get married. So she was trying to make Professor Bhaer very undesirable. But I think he's the most desirable person in this book because he just fits so seamlessly with her family. And yes, he's older. Yes, he's poor. Yes, he's foreign whenever that was seen as like being, just horrible. But he's such a warm and loving person, so kind-hearted. And the scene under the umbrella when he tells Joe that all he has to offer are his empty hands, and she says, "Not empty now," and takes them. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Peak romance. You don't have to be spicy to be romantic. This is romantic, Professor Bhaer. Now, I think I'm going to need a little sip of coffee after that. Anyway, so my top two spots were really, 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 really close because I do love Professor Bhaer. But this last one is someone I have loved since I read this book when I was very young, when I was in fourth grade. I believe it was fourth grade. And I read the entire series of these books. I loved him through the entire series. It only deepened my love for this character, reading what happens later in these books. And then I watched the mini-series that's based on these books, and I fell even harder in love with him because they picked the absolute perfect person to play the one and only Gilbert Blythe in Anne of Green Gables. And if you watch my other videos, you've seen this cover fairly recently because I said that this is one of my favorite fall reads. This book is one of my favorite of all time. And, I absolutely love Anne. I identify with her. But also, y'all, Gilbert is husband goals. Let me tell you about Gilbert Blythe. He starts out, you can tell he loves her from the beginning. Now, I didn't know that with the very first time I read this, but as a teacher, I now see that he loved her from the beginning because he was teasing her. And like in that middle school, early high school phase, that's how people showed their affection, was teasing. Anne doesn't understand this. She breaks her slate over his head. When she does that, he's like, "Oh, buddy, this is a firecracker," and he loves her even more, and he continues to pursue her until he finally gets her. And the thing is, she almost throws it all away. Gilbert is there for her through so many things, he is so steadfast in her life. He's such a constant. He applauds her for all of her achievements in life. He's just always there. And when she goes to college, she meets this guy, Roy Gardner, and I think that's his name. Again, it's been a while since I've read these, and that's like in the third or fourth, but I think it's called Anne of the Island. Um, but anyway, she meets this guy and she gets engaged to him. She thinks she's gonna marry this other guy, and I'm like, oh, Anne, no, you're not. You are clearly meant to be with Gilbert. So, there's this beautiful scene. Like, when Gilbert was first teasing her, he called her carrots. And because her hair is red, obviously, you can kind of see that from the picture here. But, when she graduates from college, she and Gilbert graduate at the same time. When she graduates, she's gotten engaged to Roy, and so anyway, I'm thinking, getting lost in my own feelings about this. Gilbert sends her a little gift, and it's a little necklace that's got a little tiny carrot on it, and he writes her a note, and I'm like, girl, you can't marry Roy. And she realizes then that she cannot in good conscience marry Roy, and she doesn't realize at that moment that it's because she really loves Gilbert. Subconsciously, I think she does. She goes back home. There's this super dramatic scene. Gilbert gets sick. She thinks Gilbert's dying. Her best friend's little sister tells her, do you know Gilbert Blythe is dying? And then Anne just is like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I thrown away? Gilbert does indeed get better, and they get together, and then it continues. Like, there's so much more to their relationship. If you watch the miniseries, don't watch the third movie. They just completely made it up. Now, watch it if you know that it's not exactly what happens, and you just want to see more of Megan Follows and Jonathan Crombie. Jonathan Crombie's portrayal of Gilbert Blythe is it is so great, so authentic, absolute perfection. But not only is he there for her when she's growing up, is he there for her through all of her academic struggles? Is he there for her as she is losing important people in her life? But during their early years of marriage, they struggle. Gil is trying to, establish a practice. He went on to become a doctor, and they're starting a family, and he still loves Anne so very much. And I can't remember which book it's in, but one of their children, Anne gives birth, and Gilbert, being a doctor, he knows that the child is not going to make it. And it is one of the most heartbreaking scenes, because here he absolutely adores his wife and his child that has just been born. And Anne is always so spirited, and she's a dreamer, right? And he has to tell her that their child is not going to make it. And, when the child does pass away, it takes a little bit out of Anne, and she goes into a depression, and Gilbert stays with her through this. So if you read the whole series, if you just read the first book, you're going to love Gilbert for one set of reasons. But if you read the entire series, you are going to understand why Gilbert Blythe is the ultimate in husband goals, because he loves Anne unconditionally. He accepts her for all of her quirks and her eccentricities, and he supports her through everything that she does and everything that she goes through. And he is her rock in times of trouble. And he's just that wonderful, he gives off that wonderful head of the family energy, but not in a I'm going to tell you what you need to do. He helps guide her, he helps direct her, but he lets her be her. And their relationship is so beautiful to watch develop, and to watch mature, and to see them learn how to give and take in their relationship. It's such a true portrayal. And Ellen Montgomery, her writing is absolutely fabulous. Um, so, I could go on about Gilbert Blythe for forever, but I'm going to stop because I'm pretty sure that you all get the point by now that he's just absolutely fabulous. So, Mr. Darcy, Professor Bhaer, Gilbert Blythe. Those would be my top 3 picks for my personal book crushes. So keep the discussion going below. Let me know who your book crushes are. I'm sorry if I kind of threw off on some of your book crushes. Didn't mean to do that. But I have very strong opinions when it comes to literature, and I'm not afraid to voice them. But let me know who your book crushes are below. And yeah, let me know what you think about my book crushes. Maybe you don't agree with my book crushes. I mean, they're just my opinions. You could disagree with them. But whatever you decide to share down below, keep it positive, and I will see you next time. Bye.